to Coast AM with Ian Punnett.
I always thought that was a really apt song. I even once got discussion when I was in seminary about whether or not that would make a great hymn because of the humanistic aspect of that understanding of evil. We bring about an enormous amount of pain to that. A lot of the evil that's done in the world is a horizontal type evil, not a vertical kind that comes from some other external source. But, you know, you can imagine an argument like including sympathy for the devil of the hymn didn't go over big. Pretty valid argument. Still, that brings us back to the conversation about the Rite, the making of a modern exorcist. Matt Baglio's book is out now in paperback. It's not the movie. It's a movie that was based on this book. The information said last half hour that in traditional Catholic catechism that that there are certain things that one does to depossess somebody of Satan, of the devil. But have there been times when an exorcism didn't work? And there's something in the book that struck me once. They said that exorcism should always be something that's done as a final solution, as a hope. Why wait? We'll find out about that next on Coast to Coast. This is Ian Punnett. Talking about the Rite, the making of a modern exorcist, now in paperback with Matt Baglio. So, Matt, let's go through the steps. You have studied this for a long time. You wrote sort of really the definitive book. The time I remember one of the chapters was it you and the priest Gary was going through English-speaking bookshops all throughout Rome trying to find the definitive book on exorcism, and there just hasn't been a lot written about it over the years, correct?
Right. I mean, most of the books that you can find were written probably in the 70s and 80s. In Italy, of course, there's been, more recent books written, and my research really was, a lot of it was in Italian. I had to read a few books written by Italian. And Father Gary Thomas had that problem as well, and that was really my goal, to try to update this topic in such a way that, people could become more illuminated, but at the same time, rather than writing just a book about the theology, which is what most is, to show what it's like through the eyes of this priest just getting started, so it's his journey, it's what he sees, what he experiences, his thoughts, his emotions. It's more narrative, you're following him, his life, and in a way, that journey, I think, allowed that many people in the past, especially lay people, hadn't had.
So what are once an exorcism has been deemed necessary, what are the steps that an exorcist would go through when in the movie The Exorcist? Because I know that one of the books that was being discussed in your book was written by the guy who was the technical consultant for the original movie The Exorcist. Do they at least get that part right?
Father John Nicola, I think, is who you're speaking of. Every exorcism is different. Of course, the movie version of my book, the ultimate, they have the ultimate authority, and they're the experts, and if they say it's the real deal, then it must be, right? So they have
But let me ask you that. I mean, when you say that, though, the real deal, you say once the church has determined that somebody is demonically possessed, then an exorcism is automatic. Other things are going to go try in the meantime. But once they've determined it's a demon, then they do the exorcism.
Right. If the exorcist determines that this is indeed a case of demonic possession, then yes, they will perform the ritual, and that helps them. But interestingly, and again, it goes back to the theology of the church, exorcism is a sacramental. So what that means is it doesn't have as much power as a sacrament. If your listeners aren't familiar with those terms, in the Catholic tradition, a sacrament is something of reconciliation, so confession. So if you're going to confession and confessing your sins,
it's automatic after that, correct? The reason other things are going to go try in the meantime. But once they've determined it's a demon, then they do the exorcism.
If the exorcist determines that this is indeed a case of demonic possession, then yes, they will perform the ritual.
Okay.
And that's really the only thing that can help them. But interestingly, and again, go back to the theology of the church, exorcism is a sacramental power as a sacrament. If your listeners aren't familiar with those terms, in the Catholic tradition, a sacrament is something like the sacrament of reconciliation, so confession. So if you're going to confession and confessing your sins, more efficacy than an exorcism. But of course, when you're demonic possessed, you're said to be unable to go and confess. So it's through the exorcism, through the rite of exorcism, that it weakens this demon's power again, so that you can go and do those kinds of. But it is a process. So the exorcist is seeing these people. I had one exorcist tell me, if a person comes to see me and says, "Father, I have a demon inside me, I need you to pray over me, I'm possessed," he says, right away, I know that's not true.
Because it's like a catch-22. If you know you're crazy, you're not crazy. So if you know you have a demon, then you don't have a demon.
That's right. That's what he said. I mean, he said that people come to see him. Lots of people are superstitious. Lots of people are, they've seen a movie. They just have a bad time in their life, and they want to ascribe, hey, I was unlucky, or I didn't do what I was supposed to do. I wasn't a good worker, etc. So he gets people to come to see him all the time. I mean, exorcists are quite clear that, according to them, 90% of the people who come to see them don't need an exorcism. They just need to be comforted, to be prayed over problems, one of these lesser attacks, if you will. They just need a blessing, and they just need to know that somebody's taking care of them, and that they need to practice their faith. They need to go to confession, go to Mass, all those kinds of things. So it begins with the interview. The exorcist says usually it's legitimate when a person comes and says, "Look, Father, I'm going crazy. I don't know what's wrong with me. I've been to see specialists, doctors. I've been to a psychiatrist. I've been going for 5, 6 years. Nothing's working. I have these problems going on in my life. My body's going so. I can't figure out what's wrong with me. They can't figure out what's wrong with me. My family thinks I'm making it up just to get attention." And that's the beginning. An exorcist will say, "Okay, well, let's go deeper then. When did this problem start? What was the cause of it?" Even pray a blessing in their mind while they're interviewing the person. And apparently sometimes they get reactions. A person will react in a negative way. One exorcist told me that if a person comes in to see him and they don't want to look in the eyes, they're just very nervous, they're very anxious, then he looks at that as a sign. Of course, there could be many other reasons for why they may be nervous, but the eyes are the window to the soul, is what he told me. And what these guys do is very interesting. When you sit down and you talk to them, they look and searching. And they've been doing this for 25 years, so they use their experience. And they see so many people, especially in Italy, day in and day out, that I think they've learned certain things to look for.
Okay, so once they begin to do the actual exorcism, is there anything extraordinary about it, or it's just a matter of doing this sacramental work? Is there, in the cases of the people who have been in exorcisms,